Body positivity is only sold to women. You've never seen a morbidly obese man on the cover of GQ, have you? Well, the average weight of American women is 170 pounds. 170 pounds as of 2023. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Shift with Gina. This podcast is an accompaniment to my women's group called The Shift, hosted on Mighty Networks. Go to myhealthshift.com, or you can click the link in the description to join my women's health group. We're doing health challenges, weekly workouts. We're doing 3 workouts a week now. We're currently in the middle of a fertility series featuring several different experts, holistic practitioners, nutrition experts, an OBGYN. A lot of different people who are coming in to help women learn more about their hormones and learn how to naturally prevent pregnancy without synthetic hormones. If you have ever watched me before, you know that I am very much against the birth control pill. So this series in my women's group is a great chance for women to learn how to take care of their hormones and their menstrual cycle without having to rely on the pill. Today's episode is going to be about body positivity. If you have followed me for 5 minutes, you know that I'm also quite anti-body positivity, anti-fat acceptance movement. This topic is particularly compelling for me to talk about because I was once on the other side where I was writing, editing, and producing a lot of content for women's digital magazines that was all about body positivity and health at every size. So I want to talk a little bit about what the current body positivity movement looks like today, why it's so detrimental to women, and how hypocritical the movement is. We're going to get into that in a second. But first, I don't think we need to explain exactly why the body positivity movement is so harmful to women, but let's go into some reasons why. First of all, we're now at a point in our society where the average American woman, well, the average weight of American women is 170 pounds. 170 pounds as of 2023. 170. I can't get over that number. Just in 1990, the average weight of American women was 150 pounds. And that's even still a little bit high, right? In 1980, the average weight was 144 pounds. So this average weight has been increasing very steadily over the last few decades. And 6 out of every 10 Americans have a chronic illness. 4 out of every 10 have 2 or more chronic illnesses. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese, and almost half of Americans are obese. So when we talk about body positivity and the harm of the fat acceptance movement, there's just no way to underplay how much harm it has on our society. This is not a trivial topic. This is not a shallow thing about the way that someone looks. We are talking about a serious public health crisis in the United States where most people are extremely unhealthy. And instead of actually trying to do something about it, the conventional medical system is pushing pharmaceuticals down people's throats just because they're incentivized to do so. And then you have all these public health organizations that are offering really no solutions. And even worse than that, you have all these mainstream machines that arguably control all of American culture, like Hollywood, social media, all these influencers who are peddling this narrative of body positivity, health at every size, love yourself exactly just the way that you are. And notice, body positivity is only sold to women. You've never seen a morbidly obese man on the cover of GQ, have you? You've never seen a fat dude on the cover of Men's Health with his gut hanging out that says men's health at every size. But when it comes to women's magazines, fat girls everywhere. You got obese women on the cover of Cosmopolitan and Self, and the headline it literally says health at every size. Or no, it says this is healthy. An obese woman, this is healthy. And then they talk about health at every size. That is a complete lie. I can't even believe we're at the point now where people have to say this, but no, you are not healthy at every single size. And this message is only sold to women. Why is that? I've talked about this before. One of the biggest reasons is because there are general personality differences between men and women. We know that regardless of how much people want to deny that. One of the big differences is that women tend to be much more insecure about their figure, about the way that they look and the way they appear in society. Women are also more likely to be compassionate, empathetic, and more interested in people than in things. And so you add all of this together and you come to the point where women are easily convinced that being obese can be something beautiful and even something virtuous, where men, they're never going to fall for that. I mean, okay, I was wondering this the other day. I was like, are we ever going to see a fat man on the cover of Men's Health? Maybe we might, but I don't think it's really going to happen because women are uniquely wired to fall for this kind of stuff, because women, they sit around, they're very insecure about the way that they look, and it's a vicious cycle. They go to a website or a magazine and the magazine affirms how perfect and beautiful they are. So then they keep going back to that magazine, but then they get really upset because they see all these other beautiful women who are much thinner and much healthier. And then it's just this vicious cycle going back for affirmation and confirmation that they're perfect just the way that they are. And this message is only being peddled and sold to women. And I think this is especially dangerous because when you look at the rates of obesity, it's pretty even, men and women who are obese. But when you get to the next level, which is extreme obesity, the rate of women is higher than men. So there are more women in America who struggle with extreme obesity, which of course has even more risks for chronic illness, premature death, cancer, stroke, high blood pressure, the works. And yet women are being sold this beautiful little cute package of body positivity. You have the Lizzos, the Tess Hollidays, who are visibly morbidly obese. And they are selling this message of just love yourself, you're perfect just the way that you are. But here's something that I want everyone to know. And I did an exclusive video on this in my women's group. So you can go to my women's group to see the exclusive content on this. I go into a lot more detail that I'm really not supposed to say in public. But I used to work for women's digital magazines. And all of these magazines are liberal on the left. I can tell you that all of the women who are in the editorial room, who are creating this content, all the editorial directors who are approving and pushing this content, none of them are fat. None of them are fat. I noticed this when I was working in an office in an editorial room in San Francisco, and a pretty big women's digital magazine that got millions and millions of unique monthly views. And I looked around the editorial room and I'm like, nobody here is obese. Nobody here is fat. And every single person who was writing about fat acceptance and body positivity and how brave Tess Holliday is, they're all thin. They all work out regularly. They all eat fairly well. They all live their life very differently than the way that they're telling their readers to live their life. Rules for thee, but not for me. And you can apply this to pretty much any other vertical in women's content, women's media, whether it comes to things like marriage and dating, abortion, of course, women's health, all of these things. Women who are in monogamous relationships or they're happily married and they have children, they're the ones who are writing all this content about how you should sleep around with multiple men, you should go to orgies, you should delay or swear off marriage altogether, and you shouldn't have kids because they ruin your life. These are the types of women that are usually writing the content that you're reading about never getting married and not having kids. They have lovely families. They love being moms. They eat well. They eat organic food. They go to Barry's boot camp. They go to Equinox and lift weights, and they have a personal trainer. They run half marathons. But they're telling you to be obese. This is what really set me off. And this is what prompted me to leave the industry altogether. And like I said, in the exclusive video in my women's group, I tell the entire story about what happened, what exactly I saw behind the scenes and in the editorial room that really made me quit, made me swear off women's digital media. And I tell the story about how the editorial directors will very carefully curate content that is false and that so it doesn't offend fat people. And see, this is not trivial. You know, it's easy to look at this and be like, that's so shallow. Who cares what women's digital magazines say? These digital magazines, they get way, way, way more monthly viewers than legacy media companies like New York Times or Wall Street Journal, the respectable newspapers. You know, those are not the newspapers and the websites that are getting millions and millions of everyday women to read their content and to take it seriously. This is a serious thing. This is not a shallow thing that we should just overlook, because what it's doing is it's creating an entire generation of fat, lazy, extremely unhealthy, unhappy women with this content that encourages them to just eat as much as they want because it's self-care, and to not care what you look like at all because BMI is racist and the beauty standards are what's really messed up. And you don't need to abide by that. You just need to be pretty, and you're fat, so you're pretty. And it's just this toxic message that's being sold to women, and it gets them a ton of clicks and views. And how do these companies survive? They survive by getting tons of clicks and views so they can sell more ads and make more money. That's what they do. And it really got under my skin when I looked around and saw that all of these, the company I worked for and all of its competitors, were constantly parading themselves around as if they were media companies that were dedicated to empowering women's lives and making women's lives better. These were the editors and the companies that were producing all of this self-destructive content, and yet they claimed to be the ones that were trying to improve women's lives. It's so hypocritical. It's disgusting. When you really open your eyes to it, and when I really saw what was happening, I was truly disgusted. Because prior to having that job, I had always written and edited for these digital magazines remotely, right? So I had, was living in different places and I was able to do the work remotely, but I got the job when I was living in San Francisco. So I was in the office every day, and I saw a lot more. I saw editorial directors take out content because they didn't want obese people to be offended. This is the kind of content that was meant to help women improve their health. They took out certain content because they didn't want obese people to be mad. And then you look at all the statistics of what's happening in America right now. We are in the middle of a public health crisis. You can't downplay that. I think the obesity crisis is one of the most frightening things that's happening to America today. And we're not really doing much about it, mostly because all the mainstream machines and all the powers that be, this is by design. They want you to be very obese. They want you to be compliant, because when you're fat, that also makes you dumber. Being incredibly overweight lowers your IQ generally. It makes you much more susceptible to brainwashing, and it makes you much easier to control. So this is what they want. So it's coming at Americans from all angles. It's coming from the conventional medical system. None of these MDs, none of these doctors have any real plans to help people cure their obesity, because the thing about obesity is that it's 100% reversible and 100% curable. But the doctors, instead of actually helping people make lifestyle choices and dietary choices, they're just giving them pharmaceuticals, injecting them with Ozempic. Okay, you may temporarily lose 30 pounds, but you can't be on Ozempic forever. And once you're off Ozempic, do you think the weight's just going to stay off? You're going to get hungry again, and you're going to just start eating more, and you haven't fixed any of your bad habits, and you haven't taught yourself anything about food and lifestyle. So if you lost some weight, you're just going to get fat again. So the conventional medical system is doing nothing to help this obesity crisis. And then you turn around and you look at the culture. The culture is just worsening the obesity crisis by spewing lies about what it means to be healthy, about what it means to be fat, telling women that obesity is healthy and beautiful and virtuous. You look at all these celebrities and influencers who are peddling this narrative. It's no wonder you have a lot of teenage girls, young women, who are incredibly depressed. They feel very unfulfilled because they keep taking in all of this drivel that's coming from the media, from social media, from Hollywood, and they're incredibly unhealthy. I think we should be extremely concerned about the average weight of adult women in America. 170 pounds. That's average. People are like, oh, but people are tall here. No, I think the average height, let's see, average height of American women is like 5'4". Let's look. Yeah, 5'4". The average height of American women is 5'4". So let's look it up. American woman average size, height, weight. Let's see what it says here. The average American woman of 20 years of age and up weighs 171 pounds, stands at 63 and a half inches, so like 5'4". That's really big, you guys. 170 pounds at 5'4". I'm 5'2". I didn't get close to 170 pounds when I was pregnant. Did I, honey? No, I didn't. I didn't get anywhere close to 170 pounds when I was like 9 months pregnant. Guys, that's crazy. There's no amount of mental gymnastics that can make this okay. No. And then you have Lizzo. Her Instagram handle is literally Lizzo be eating. And here's the thing, the narrative that keeps this going, that keeps perpetuating this. When you hear anyone criticize Lizzo, criticize body positivity and fat acceptance, what's the most common response that you hear from these activists, from the feminists? What do you care what women do with their bodies? Mind your own business. You need to get a hobby. What do you care what size Lizzo is? What do you care how fat a woman is? She's happy. Let her eat and be happy. This is their defense. And this comes directly from the live and let live liberal trash philosophy of, as long as it's not hurting me, I don't care if people do it. And this comes from the misconception that our actions and our lives don't affect others. So when you approach things from a more Burkean perspective, society is a living organism where our actions and our choices deeply affect one another, and it deeply affects the organism that is our society, this living organism. So of course it affects the rest of the country when 70% of Americans are overweight and 45% are obese. Of course it affects other people. When women who are the bearers of children are incredibly overweight, fat, unhealthy, it affects their fertility. And if they do have children, it affects what kind of mother they're going to be and how they're going to raise their child and what lifestyle they're going to pass down to their children. So there's no way you can ever convince me that these levels of obesity aren't affecting our entire society. Everything we do, it's just like the same argument for drug use, right? So let's apply that same logic. So you're telling me that someone who is addicted to heroin, someone who constantly does hardcore drugs every single day, we should just let them do that? Like that's not going to affect the rest of society? Of course it is. If you have a large group of the population that is killing themselves through drug addiction, alcohol addiction, overeating, obesity, when that part of society starts to decay away, that's going to affect the rest of society, to everything from economic productivity to the example we're setting for the next generation, to just the culture at large. I want to live in a virtuous culture. I do. And this is something that a lot of even people on the right don't get. We've been conditioned to believe that the government is only there to just protect our rights and don't do anything else. Just make sure that, we don't get killed and make sure our religious freedom isn't trampled on, which is all well and good, of course. But what a lot of the founding fathers actually desired when they founded America was to create a virtuous society where the state promotes the good. The state isn't only there to protect your rights, it's also there to promote the good, so that we have a healthy, thriving society with moral citizens. This is something that is often forgotten, even by people on the right. The founding fathers did not create the founding documents so that people could just sit around all day and watch porn and jerk off and eat themselves to death and do heroin and do coke all day. Like that's not what they had in mind. That's not the freedom and liberty that they wanted for the United States. Liberty is having the freedom to do what you ought to do. It's not having the freedom to do whatever you want all the time and just succumbing to your base desires. So when we actually start to think about society in this way, we understand that these high rates of obesity have serious effects on the whole country, has effects on our healthcare system, driving up insurance premiums, putting a strain on our healthcare system. We should be very concerned because now you see these rates of obesity reflected in all these different fields of work. You see reflected in police, law enforcement. Law enforcement officers are so fat and out of shape. You see it reflected in the conventional medical system. Doctors and nurses are fat. Almost all of them are fat. You see it reflected in all of these careers where they're meant to help other people. And of course, being overweight affects the quality of your life and affects the quality of your work. I'm not sitting around and playing this game anymore that your looks don't affect your weight, your health at all. See, this is another lie that's been sold to you by the fat acceptance movement, that your weight has nothing to do with your productivity, has nothing to do with the way that you perform at the gym. It's got nothing to do with how smart you are or how healthy you are. They also try to convince you that your size is not related to your health. That's complete nonsense. Total nonsense. Your weight is very connected to your health. If you are 40 pounds overweight, that of course is going to affect your internal health. It's going to affect your brain function, how productive you're able to be in society, how quick you are on your feet, how mentally clear you are, how emotionally sound you are. Never believe the lie that someone's obesity does not affect the way that they function in society. It absolutely does. So I do not want to live in a society where law enforcement, firefighters, doctors, nurses, people who are meant to save other people's lives are obese and very unhealthy. I don't want to live in that kind of society. And yet this is the society that we've built for ourselves. All under the guise, this pretty little pink bow of fake compassion. I have compassion for women who sit around all day and eat Doritos and ice cream. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be me. It's frightening. It's such a black pill. I can't help but sometimes be black-pilled about it, but body positivity and fat acceptance is not something to just gloss over, because again, obesity is the number one public health crisis that we're facing. It's just as absurd as if, so we have an opioid crisis in America as well, for sure. We have an opioid crisis that results in very high numbers of opioid overdoses every year. I don't know what the numbers are, but we can look it up. The numbers of opioid overdoses have spiked in the last 5 to 10 years, probably in just the last 5 years. So it's a health crisis, right? So it's just as absurd as if you looked at the cover of GQ or the cover of Women's Health and you saw a heroin addict with a needle in their arm. This is sober. This is happiness, and the person is shooting up. The heroin addict is in the middle of administering illegal drugs to themselves. That's just as absurd. So here we are in a public health crisis where half of Americans are obese, and we're putting obese women on the cover of women's magazines, and we're calling it healthy and beautiful. Now, nobody is saying that obese people should be treated like animals and they should have their rights taken away and people should treat them cruelly. Nobody is saying that. What we're saying is that if you actually cared about other people's health, you would not lie to them, because true compassion never goes hand in hand with lying. And you can tell the truth in a way that's not cruel. And I think it's so sick and twisted that so many people have been convinced that this is the way to be kind, to lie to people, to lie to obese people and tell them that they're beautiful and tell them they don't need to change anything. That's the kind thing to do. You're encouraging them to continue killing themselves. Same thing as if you did that to an alcoholic or a drug addict. Keep doing what you're doing, honey. You shoot up that heroin. Yeah, go get that vodka. You keep drinking because you're perfect just the way that you are. You don't need to change a thing.
I'm drunk right now.
It's absurd. And women are the ones who are dumb enough to fall for it because we are so insecure about the way that we look and we need all this fake affirmation all the time. And I really think it's also deeply connected with the fact that women, a lot of women, people in general, but women too, are just lacking true meaning in their lives. And they're not getting this deep connection and intimate connection with their family or with the husband or children that is going to help them feel more fulfilled. You know, more women than ever are delaying marriage and they're foregoing motherhood, and they're focusing solely on their careers and going out and traveling and being the girl boss. And it's leaving them deeply unhappy. So then they become deeply unhappy with who they are and what they look like. And so they seek affirmation and they seek validation in the wrong places. And that's how women end up falling for body positivity and fat acceptance. It really is. It's this spiritual sickness. It's all by design. You know, it's a spiritual sickness where women are deeply unhappy and unfulfilled. And that's how they succumb to these personality differences that men don't really struggle with as much, right? Women struggle more with the insecurity and, you know, unsure and uncertain about the way that they look. And so when they're unfulfilled and unhappy, they just succumb to these feelings and they fall for these ridiculous ideologies that are just going to leave them in more despair. So, but I want everyone to remember, if you forget everything else I said, remember this: all the women who are writing the body positivity content, they're skinny, they're thin, they're rich, they're pretty, and they would never be a size 14 in their wildest dreams. In fact, they would never even be a size 6. And these are the women that are selling the body positivity content to you. They're the ones who are putting the fat girls on the cover of their magazines, and they're calling them brave and beautiful, even though they would never, ever, ever look like that. You be fat, honey, but I'm going to stay a size 2. But you go, girl. Look at you, Lizzo. Oh my gosh, you are so brave. But hold on, I'm just going to go eat a kale salad and I'm going to go on a run. Yeah. And I'm going to go do some Pilates. But you, honey, you go, you do your thing. Sick. It's so sick. It's because women hate each other. I don't know. I have this kind of like fun theory that body positivity was actually secretly invented by hot girls to eliminate any potential competition. You know, they like to say that body positivity was started by like fat black women or whatever, but no, it's probably started by a bunch of hot girls that were like, listen, we don't want any of these chicks to compete with us for high value men. So we're just going to tell them they're beautiful just the way that they are and hand them body positivity, and then they'll just stay fat forever. And then we won't have any more competition. It's genius because it works, right? Because I don't think any guy who's looking for a serious girlfriend or a long-term wife wants a girl who is into fat acceptance. So, you know, the hot girls who invented body positivity, you did great. Good job. Well done. It was successful. If you are, in all seriousness though, if you're someone who's struggling with your weight and struggling with your health, you are not alone. There's a lot of women in this country who are really struggling right now. And I know that all the information out there can be confusing and it can be overwhelming, but we have a lot of women in my health group who are currently working on weight loss and fat loss of all ages, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I even have women there in their 60s. We do workouts every Monday and Thursday. We do a mobility session every week as well. Like I said, we're in the middle of a fertility series. We're also finishing up a cardio challenge. So we've got about one more week of our cardio challenge left, and we're going to be doing a lot more fitness challenges in the future. So join us if you're serious about getting healthy. A lot of women in my group have had success so far, and it's just a really great supportive place where we can laugh at some of the ridiculous things that are happening in society, but we can also get really serious about taking care of ourselves, optimizing fertility, managing our menstrual cycle naturally, exercising regularly, getting good sunshine, discussing what kind of recipes to cook, how to eat better, what supplements to take. So join myhealthshift.com, or you can click the link in the description. Hope to see you there. Ladies, sorry guys, no men allowed. Sorry. Only ladies. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.